All right, Darren, so we are at FabCon 2025 here in Las Vegas. I know it's your favorite place in the world to visit.
I love it.
And we just finished our presentation. It was on bringing together Microsoft Purview, Fabric, of course, being FabCon, and a lot of the kind of AI agentic elements to kind of scale out the data management piece. For those of you, of those that are attending that couldn't actually be at our session, sum up what we were kind of talking about just so they can get the TLDR.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Tim. Thanks. The session was a lot of fun, a lot of great questions and energy in the room. So what I would say in summary, data governance and data management are, like they're better together topics.
Right.
Inside of Data Purview, we're giving people a modern tool for the age of data governance to curate their data estates with that business view of data. How do you get value? What is the risk you're measuring? And then marrying it, the bottoms up side, with the actual data estate, which is where, of course, CluedIn especially shines in helping the people fix the data quality problems that they find. And so, I feel like the story resonated well with people that were there in terms of managing their data estate, improving the quality of their data, and then having visibility to both throughout.
At the start of the session, you actually kind of prodded the audience and you asked a few questions. And one of those was, how many of the practitioners in the room are from a data governance focus? And I was actually pleasantly surprised how many people put their hands up. Is that kind of what you expected?
So I wasn't sure what to expect in that question because we are at a Fabric conference. There's lots of engineers here.
Yeah.
But, we have an executive track. We had great turnout there last year. But what we also found is that there's a reason that Purview aligns itself marketing-wise, go-to-market-wise with data and AI. The audience here really understands the challenges that we're helping them solve.
Right.
And we've found, especially based on attendance at our workshop last year and this year that were both sold out at a Fabric conference for data governance. A lot of people traveled from far and wide to come see data governance as part of the show. So I wasn't surprised to see a lot of hands, but I was very happy to see them there. I wasn't sure if this was one they were going to come to or not, but
and boom,
look at that.
So, actually, I would just echo that some of the other conferences we've been at CluedIn lately is that getting data ready for AI readiness was a big theme that brought data governance kind of to the surface, and it made it like a shining star in those events as well. You and I, and if we zoom out, CluedIn and Microsoft both have this kind of shared idea that it's so important that the business gets involved in what has historically been a very IT and engineering big focus, which is data. It's always been something that we go, data problems, throw it to the IT and engineering team.
Yeah.
And you and I both share this kind of ethos that, it turns out the people that are the experts on the actual data, they live out there in the ecosystem. And one of the things that you and I often talk about is this kind of federation approach. So I'd like to understand from your customers what you're seeing in how they're adopting this federated approach of actually bringing the business in and the kind of outcomes that you're seeing from that.
Yeah, no, it's both, I think, one of the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities, because historically, those people have always existed in the business. They didn't always have IT tools to help them. And so they use spreadsheets for data governance programs. So the exciting thing for them now is that they have a tool that they can use to run these strategic initiatives at their company that marries both what they've always cared about, but also brings together the technical aspect of the company, who are desperate to deliver value for the company and have it visible. And because I don't know about you, but more than once in my career when I was focused on a practitioner in data, I built something I was super proud of to only found out they stopped caring about it 6 months ago, and that wasn't quite right.
We've all done that.
We've all done that, And so keeping those things aligned inside the technology environment in Fabric and the Purview environment for data governance, and then of course in CluedIn, in the areas that you're delivering and partnering with us on, it's really creating that opportunity to help people do more and make it visible, I think.
So let's segue onto that. So we're at a Fabric event, and obviously a lot of the crowd here, they've got Fabric in place. They might have had it in for a while. They've got Purview in place. At what point do you tell your clients, okay, now's the time to look into something like CluedIn? And what part of their journey do you think is the best part to have that kind of discussion of, you really need to be looking at MDM solutions like CluedIn?
So it's interesting that you asked me that question, because yesterday at the booth, there was a gentleman who came from his company, and he was from a small IT shop, and he was like, we're building an awesome data warehouse, and they're telling us they want Purview, but we're not sure which one we should do first. And the answer is yes, do both. And obviously the answer applies just equally to master data management,
exactly.
data quality investments as well, because those problems will exist whether or not you have a data governance solution in place, or whether or not you have a data warehouse in place. And so you should always focus on making as much progress with all of those things wherever you are in your journey. And like the proverb says, the best time to plant an apple tree is yesterday. Well, the same thing with these.
Agreed. So let's segue on to the agents, because this was one of the real fun parts of our session. We had the live demonstration, and between you and me, live demonstrations with large language models, it's always a heart-pumping kind of moment. And so, of course, we're super glad that it ended up, the demo was really solid and worked really nice. In fact, we had a couple of people come up to us after and say, like, that was slick. Where do you see agents playing into the kind of whole ecosystem? Obviously, in our presentation, we used agents to go and find our data quality issues, make suggestions on what the fix should be, explain why the large language model thought that fix would be appropriate for the particular problem. Where else do you see agents being scalable under the data governance umbrella?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And one quick side note, I love the way you actually personify the agents in your product, because a lot of technologies, you don't know if it's a co-pilot or an agent. You're just typing to it. And it may deliver a ton of value, but I think as humans, it makes it really real when you can go, hey, here's a person with a little face. And, I love it. And they have names. And, I don't know if your data steward should be named Susie or something, but anyway, I love that. So the other places in data governance where we feel this is really important, let me actually up-level the question first, because in data governance, there's a lot of problems that require human beings to assimilate a ton of information about the metadata that they've put into the product, and then come up with a reasoned result over all of that. And a point that you made in the session is that the business is happy to be at the table today, because they may not be excellent coders, but they have a lot of knowledge about the data.
They do.
So to the extent that we can get them to bake that into the metadata and the curation process and data governance, it not only makes the non-AI, non-agentic scenarios better, because now your search experience benefits from all that, but when you leap over to the AI and the agent, now all of those things are learning from that expertise that's been sitting around in Excel spreadsheets in your company forever. And so literally any process that can benefit from that information would be good. Now, a couple of specific examples that we have already seen is the process of, like, what data governance domains should I have? Well, there's no one right answer to that, because every company will think about that, and the other problem is it's not one-to-one. Maybe 3 different areas of the business use the same data, but an agent, you can say, hey, look at all of my metadata and suggest a set of governance domains, and they can look at the data, they can learn from the entire internet, they can learn from all the metadata you put in the tool, and they can go, hey, these 4 might be a great place to start. What do you think? And you can go, ooh, I like those 3. That one makes no sense. But save those. And then boom, you've got them, and you've avoided, 17 meetings with 12 departments and, an approval process. And now you still want to review it. You still want to make sure it makes sense. But that's the value of assimilating all that information and doing something that's normally a time-intensive human-based process, and bootstrapping an answer faster. And the same is true all the way down the data governance stack, but between the governance domains and data products, and even associating data, generating glossary terms, all of the concepts that are part of the curation process, we can make suggestions to help that process go faster. And then maybe you take it and you go into your meeting, with a warm list and say, what do you guys think about this? And then they go, oh, because, humans don't do well with blank walls, know? And so I think speeding that process up, helping to augment things, but especially places where there's a vast amount of information that you have to assimilate, humans will take months to go through that, and an agent will do it in a few minutes.
I mean, I share that and echo that completely. One of the things that we kind of talked about at the start of the session was, at the end of the day, I think what most people are looking for is technology that can look on, that they just turn on, and it just does a lot of that brute force kind of investigation for them. And then it's about surfacing what it's found and putting it into this kind of operational mode. For there, we need the domain experts. But I mean, maybe my last question to you, you are now heading up the Microsoft Purview team, and you've got a great, fantastic team there. The product roadmap's pretty exciting. In that product roadmap, what do you think you're most excited about for Purview customers?
Good question. So there's a lot of hard problems that we're making steady progress against. So every time we do that, our customers are unblocked a little bit more, and so I would say, data quality, not only in partnership with CluedIn, but also what we're doing in the product is a big area. Because what I would say is that at Microsoft, even though we have a vast set of technologies in Azure that we support, we also support cross-cloud as well as on-prem data sources. And so the more we can keep delivering that, and we're making deep investments to support on-prem capabilities, we're very excited about that. I think another place that data gets locked up sometimes with customers is behind VNets, virtual networks. And so if you find yourself in a highly regulated industry and you can't have your data be touched over the internet, or without those protections, you can't use our services until what we've announced at this event, which is VNet support initially for Databricks and for Snowflake, and within a few more weeks we'll have also full support for Fabric. So we're covering some of the really exciting cloud data estates, and obviously we'll continue to expand that roadmap. I think the last area that in the product we're super excited about, I would say two last things. One of them is observability, which is giving people a visual way to interact with their data estate, sideways, up and down, zooming in, zooming out, scoping. And it's a visual thing because sometimes you don't know what you're searching for, so there's no amount of prompt engineering that will help you find it. But if you go in visually you can see it around it as a graph. So that's a very exciting investment. And then another one that seems like a small thing, but it's incredibly important to a lot of enterprise customers, is being able to augment the metadata model of Purview itself with custom attributes. And if you've been a Purview customer for a long time, you know that we've always supported that for physical assets in the data estate, but we didn't extend that concept of custom attributes or metadata extensions to all the data governance concepts. And so that's a huge thing that many of our customers have been asking for. And we have a preview going for that now, and it will be public preview in GA very soon. So hopefully that will also give people even more ability to augment the metadata that all this cool AI technology can also keep learning from as well.
Excellent. So if anyone wants to get started with Microsoft Purview and CluedIn, of course there's a free version of CluedIn that anyone can get started with. Of course from Purview, also really easy to get started with. And so I would say there's not an easier time to get started with data governance. If you're not on that journey, two great technologies working great together, great place to start. But thank you so much, Darren.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Thanks, Tim.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, man.